Hey guys, I'm Jordan and you're watching Fixbook. Now today's video is special. It's not like the regular videos. Basically what you'll be watching is an excerpt from a much larger video, but this will still help you fix or replace whatever it is that you're dealing with. So in today's excerpt video, I'm going to be showing you how to replace a knuckle on your Honda Civic. Alright guys, and the first thing we'll do is go ahead and break your lug nuts loose. So once you get your car lifted up in the air, we'll be able to remove the lug nuts all the way and take your wheel off. Okay guys, and the next thing we'll want to do is go ahead and lift up the car. You can see where that jack stand is sitting right there. We'll go ahead and put the jack stand right there, but underneath where you'll see this little place there meant for a jack stand. And then the jack stand is actually going to lift up on that hook looking thing there underneath the front of your car, right where the jack is lifting up. Alright, so now I'll just finish taking these lug nuts off here. Alright guys, and the next thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and take a flathead screwdriver. I actually don't have mine just for the moment, so I'm using this pair of pliers right here. But you're going to do the same thing. You'll go ahead and stick this in. We're going to, I guess it's called unchucking this spindle nut or axle nut. So we'll be able to break it loose, and I'll just go ahead and grab my flathead screwdriver in a minute and do that. Then we'll also take a 32mm socket. We're going to stick it on the end of here and break it loose. Okay guys, and I took that flathead screwdriver and I got him out there nice and good. It'll look just like that. May not be all the way, but that's just fine. So now we'll take our 32mm socket and I'm just going to go ahead and break them loose there. And I've already got them all lifted up, but hopefully your car's still on the ground, and once we break them loose there, we can just take them right off like that. Okay guys, and the next thing I'm going to do here is we're going to be rearranging our jack. First, we'll want to go ahead and let the jack down on that jack stand. We're going to want the jack stand to hold on to the car for us. Then we're going to take our jack here and we're going to move him from there, that little hook area guy I was talking about, to right down here somewhere. We're going to put him right about here, and we're going to lift up on the car, and we're going to raise the car up as high as we can, because ideally what we're going to be doing is we're going to be changing the ball joint while the knuckle is still on the car. And because basically the job calls for about 2 hours, but I'm going to try and skip the knuckle removal process, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So I will give you all a little shortcut here, and we'll remove this lower ball joint without actually removing the knuckle, which will be great. Now if you wanted to remove the upper ball joint there, we are actually going to have to remove the knuckle, but the upper ball joint is most commonly just going to be fine. It's generally the lower ball joint for these Honda Civics that goes bad, and your upper ball joint should last about 500,000 miles, so you probably don't need to replace that, chances are. So we're going to go ahead and lift the car up right here, and we're going to jack it way up in the air as high as we can get it. Okay guys, so here we are. You can see I've changed the jack position. I've also changed the jack stand position because my other jack, it was smaller, and I'm using a bigger jack now because the car is so high up in the air. And basically we're going to be focusing in right here on our ball joint. Alright, so the next thing we'll do here is we'll go ahead and remove this cotter pin. And we want to do this before we do anything else, because if you get to this part and you figure out you can't remove your castle nut there, then there's really no point of doing the other things first. So you want to make sure first you're going to be able to remove this castle nut, because this is a difficult thing to do, and I may have to use an air compressor and an air gun, and I know you guys may not have that, but one solution is if you have a Harbor Freight around you somewhere nearby, you can go ahead and purchase an electric corded impact gun, and you may be able to get that off with that impact corded gun. I have the air gun there, so it may be difficult to get this castle nut off, like I'm saying here. So we're gonna see if it comes off easy, if it's gonna give me trouble. If it starts spinning, that's gonna give me trouble, and it's not gonna be real easy. So let's see, it either just broke loose or spun on me. So we're about to find out. Oh yeah, so it's stuck on me. That's great. So, and you may have the same problem with it going back on as well. So as long as you can get the cotter key in there, you should be safe to drive it when you put it back on. But like I said, if you get stuck, that's just one thing you want to keep in mind when you're putting it back together. if you spin it right on and this stud starts spinning, then you may have to purchase kind of like a impact gun, maybe like a corded impact gun for 60 bucks. Because I mean, you don't want to buy an air compressor and an air gun. That's going to be a whole lot of money. But just keep that in mind. That is necessary to ensure a good job when we're replacing this ball joint. Alright, and the next thing I'll do, guys, is I'll come over here. We want to get this hose kind of off, and we're going to take this whole piece and set it over here. So first, we'll want to go ahead and take this nut off. It's a 12mm nut, and I'm going to go ahead and just get on them there, and lefty loosen them right off there. And we got a whole bunch of thread coming out. That's always fun. And just to make sure I don't damage anything, I'm going to go ahead and grab some PB Blaster and just kind of clean it up there. I'll run it back down a little bit more, and then I'll run it back in just to make sure the bolt and threads don't get damaged. And you can go ahead and just take that nut all the way off, and if you're having the same problem, just do the same thing as me. Take some PB Blaster, spray it on both ends, and then we'll run them down and then run them back up. And that way we'll make sure we don't damage the bolt or the threads, and then this hose will just come right off. And go ahead and just run them back in. And then I'll just run them back out, and as you can see here, it's coming out a little bit better. I'm a little bit happier with that. And there we go. So now we got our hose out of the way. And next what we'll do is we'll go ahead and grab our 19mm, and we'll just take this whole assembly off here and kind of set it off to the side. And before you're going to do that also, what you'll want to do is kind of come here with your flathead screwdriver, and let's see if you can see what I'm talking about. You can't. So we'll come right here with the flathead screwdriver, just kind of reach in there and just kind of compress that piston a little bit so this will move around freely. Otherwise, you may not be able to take this whole assembly off like you'll see me do here in just a moment. Okay, and here we are, and you're not going to be able to see both the bolts, but there's one right here. You can see my finger on it, and basically this is the caliper bracket bolts. I'll go ahead and begin by loosening this one down here. I'm just going to loosen them up there, and I'll get the other one, which is going to be up top, and there we go. So now I'll just go ahead and take my socket and extension and just kind of work these guys out. There's the one right there. They're short little stubby guys. And I'll take this bottom one out. You may have to lift up on the bracket here a little bit. And there we go. So now this guy will just slide right off like so. And with our hose disconnected, we can set them off here in a safe place. And try and be easy, guys, so we can keep those pads right in there, and then we won't have to really mess with them any. But if they fall out, you may have a mess to deal with, and I feel sorry for you if that happens. Oh, and guys, you might be wondering what I did with my caliper bracket. Well, for right now, I just kind of set them out of the way. I kind of set them there behind my jack, and he's just sitting there on a jack stand, kind of just resting back there. And my hopes are that when I'm banging on stuff, it's not going to really be affected because it's really just out there sitting out of the way. But if I do have trouble with that, then I'll show you where you're going to want to move it out of the way if it's interfering with the job over here. Now, the next thing we want to do is go ahead and, if you haven't already, just remove your axle nut, and we'll go ahead and set this rotor off to the side, kind of get them out of our way. And now we're going to deal with our tie rod end, and we're first going to take this nut off. I believe it's a 17mm nut. We got that Cotter key again, and hopefully again, guys, this thing will come out pretty easy. So I'll just take my dikes here, just kind of grab a hold of them, and like I was saying, we'll just go ahead with our dikes and we'll grab a hold of them here. Just kind of want to bend the guy out of the way, bend this other one out of the way. Like so, and then we'll just go ahead and grab this, and I just like to clamp down and pull like that. And also, well, I'm going to take some PB Blaster, kind of help me along the way. I don't want to get it up on the stud. Ideally, we want the stud to just kind of sit still, and we want the threads to be real easy for us. So just like that right there, that's enough. I don't want to get it too much up in there. So now we'll take our 17mm here, wherever he may be. I'll just go ahead and set them on there, and then we'll just hope and pray that this thing comes off. And just one little thing here, so I'm just gonna, there we go, and hopefully, yes, it was a nut again. Okay, so this is good, this is real good. Now, again, like I was saying, you just wanna remember that when we go to put this back on, either one of these studs can spin on us. So it may be necessary to have access to an impact gun. So keep that in mind before you begin your project. Now, what we'll do is we'll unmount the tie rod end and the ball joint, and we're going to use our special tool to do that. So we can kind of pop the knuckle out of place, and then we'll pull the axle out, and we'll go ahead and swing the knuckle around so we can begin removing the ball joint. Alright, so I'm going to begin using the easier of the two methods, which is just your hammer right here. We're going to hit up on them, and then whether it needs it or not, I'll use the special tool for the ball joint just so you know how to use that in case you need to use that. So basically we're just going to hit on the stud. Be really careful not to get those threads, because then we'll have a problem getting your castle nut back on. So there we go. So that one came out. It cooperated really nicely. Now we'll go down to the ball joint and we will separate it from the knuckle. Alright, so now we'll work on getting this ball joint separated from the knuckle, and to do that we're going to use our special ball joint tool here, and I got this one from Harbor Freight for 20 bucks. You could also probably find it at Northern Tools, or any of the professional tool carriers will probably carry as well. And it's almost like they made this one for Honda Civic ball joints, because what you'll do is you'll have your tool here. Sorry, I'm making sure it's in the camera. It'll set to the lowest one here, so we're gonna run the stud here through this guy right here, and when we run the stud all the way back off there, and this piece right here will touch that, that's perfectly fit for the ball joint removing thing here for the Honda Civic. So we'll go ahead and stick them in here like so, and basically what we've got is we've got this top piece right here setting over top of the knuckle where the ball joint sets in, and then we've got this bottom piece here setting on the stud. And what we'll do is we'll take a socket here, I think it's a 19mm, it's going to sit on top of this stud. We're going to run this guy down, and what we've got here is kind of like a seesaw, where this is going to push here. We've got our pivot point right here, and when we push down on this piece, it's going to be pushing the stud up, so that's going to pop the ball joint out of the knuckle. Okay guys, and again, I just want to make sure you got a really good shot here. I want to make sure you really see what exactly is going on here. So these two claws right up here are going to go right in this position right here, and they're going to grab onto that piece, and I'm just going to slide them in right behind there. And again, I'll tighten this guy up, and you can see him there kind of holding onto the stud. So I'll go ahead and run my tool down here, and you'll just see the stud, he'll pop right up out of that knuckle. So here we are. I'm going to begin running this tool down, and I'll be able to hear it pop out. You guys have the privilege of seeing it pop out. And hopefully it'll work the first try here. Sometimes it comes off and you have to reline them up. There we go. What a noise. So that's how you know it comes out. You'll hear it pop right out there. And now this whole piece right here, the knuckle piece, will just kind of swing out, and we should be able to begin that removing the ball joint procedure. So next, I'll go ahead and remove my tool here. So let's back him up a little bit, and I'll just set him off the side, and I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna pop this guy up, and we want to get the axle out of the way. So just bring him up here off the knuckle, and now we'll see our axle there, and our knuckle will just be swinging right around here. There you go. So we'll just remove the upper ball joint there too, and just kind of bring the whole knuckle out, and then I'm gonna go over to the vise, and then that's how we'll remove that ball joint. Alright, and what I did was I went ahead and set the knuckle back into that lower ball joint thing with the ball joint in, and then I set the tie rod back in, and I went ahead and removed the cotter key, and I also took that nut off. Now we'll just go ahead and remove that piece there with the hammer, or you might try that special ball joint tool. Just make sure not to damage this rubber piece. Be really careful if you're using that ball joint tool to do that. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then we'll just pick up this whole knuckle piece and we'll just take it over to the vise. Okay guys, now it's time to go ahead and stick our knuckle with our new ball joint in it back in. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my knuckle. We're going to reach on up in here and you'll go ahead and grab that castle nut for the upper ball joint. Go ahead and stick them in there and hold them with one hand while I start the castle nut with the other. There we go, I've got them started. So once I've got them started, I'm just going to let them hang there for a second. And I'll get everything else situated. I'm going to go ahead and get this axle sticking back in here like so. And then I'll stick our guy right back in here. And I'll also will make sure we get our new ball joint sitting back into the lower control arm. And I just realized the whole time I've been calling the lower control arm the knuckle. That's what, for some reason I was just thinking it was that way, but no, that's not what it's called. So we're gonna go ahead and, like I said, we're just gonna get everything in here just like so, and then I'll come back up top here and I'll work on getting this castle nut tightened down to the knuckle to the upper control arm. Okay, now the next thing we'll do is we're gonna tighten this castle nut, and we're just gonna really hope and pray that this thing goes back on. And if you don't have an impact gun, this is really where you're going to want to just kind of pray this thing goes back on. I'm going to say a quick prayer first to assure this thing goes on here. Dear Father, be with us today and just help this castle nut please go back on without any trouble. So Father, please just help this go back together well. And I just pray and ask for these things in Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. So we'll go ahead and put this on here. Hopefully it's not going to start spinning on us, because if it starts spinning on us, I'm really going to be in trouble because I don't have what I need to get this thing to go here so I'm watching, and it is spinning on us. So, oh man, it's going to be really funny, but I'm sure I'll figure something out. Okay guys, so I think I found our solution here. I bet some of you guys thinking there, hey, Jordan's praying and God didn't do what he asked for. So, but I got to thinking here, if God had answered my prayer, I wouldn't be able to show you guys what I'd figured out here, and I wouldn't have been able to show you guys exactly how to do this if I had just been able to get it on there. So that's a good thing. So basically what I've done here is I've taken my ball joint tool and I've kind of done the reverse to where we're holding this upper control arm to kind of squeeze and hold that upper ball joint, and we're just going to go ahead and tighten them down. And basically what that's going to do, it's going to hold the stud and it's going to enable us to tighten that castle nut up there. So let's go ahead and get our guy on here. Make sure it's not spinning. And yeah, we can see the studs kind of coming through here. And now it's seeming tough again, so I'm gonna have to watch again and just make sure that the stud doesn't spin. And it's just staying still, so it's a good thing so far. And it's getting close, so it looks like we may be able to do this. It's looking pretty good right now. Just hope and pray, keep on hoping and praying this thing doesn't want to turn on us. And it kind of feels like it's turning, but it looks like it's tightening up, so that's a good thing. Let's just keep on going. And once we about got it tightened up on there, you can kind of, if you just spin it real fast, it's not gonna spin the stud, just because it's gonna hang on there. It's gonna really bite down and it'll twist up on there. So we'll work on sending that cotter key right through there to hold that castle nut in. Okay, so the next thing we'll do is we're gonna take a torque wrench, go ahead and torque this guy to about 35 foot-pounds. And it's really not too essential, just make sure that the hole lines up and everything. And I'm gonna get him to a place where he won't turn anymore, and then I'm just gonna, I might have to throw a universal joint on this thing. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put something else on that. Alright, and here I am after I've realigned with that universal joint, and I'm just going to go ahead and hold on to this guy and make sure that socket stays flush the whole time. And there we go. And I heard it click, so that's 35 foot-pounds. And now I'm just going to look in here, and it looks like the castle nut just lined up for me just about perfect there. So I'm making sure you guys can see what I'm talking about here. Let's see if I can't lift it up and... Okay guys, and that's just about right how you want it right there, to where you can see through the other side. You can see if I stick my finger behind there, you can see it moving. So once you got it right about like that, and 35 foot-pounds should send you right there, we're going to go ahead and take one of our Cotter keys or Cotter pins. I got this little set right here from probably AutoZone or maybe another parts store. They'll sell you a whole kit right here, and it's just a good thing to have around in case you need a new one. In my case, mine was broken, so I'll just open this nice little set and pick out a new Cotter pin so I can lock my castle nut in place. And basically, I'm not going to walk through the other two castle nuts because you're going to have the same type of thing where you tighten them up on there and you stick a Cotter pin in there. So once we get all those castle nuts back on and the Cotter pins back in, I'll show you the next step. Okay guys, and I realized before I set you free here, I want to show you me actually sticking a pin in there. So I'll go ahead and do that for you. I'm just going to stick this new little Cotter pin in there and make sure it's the right size. You'll be able to figure it out. Now I'm going to grab my pair of dikes wherever they may be. I found my dikes here, so basically I'll just at first kind of use it like a hammer, just kind of beat down on them. Then I'll take one of the sides here and just kind of get him out of the way, and then I'll put the other side. So you want them kind of going opposite sides there, like that. And I can't seem to get it how I want it, but that'll work good just like that. And also make sure not to hurt your studs if you're using a hammer or something like that on them. So for the next person, which will probably be you, when they take it apart, it'll be easier for them. So like I said, just go ahead and put those castle nuts on and I'll meet you there. So once you've got everything put back together as far as your tie rod ends and ball joints, and you've got your Cotter pins in, we're going to go ahead and... My gloves all tore up here, that's okay though. I just want my fingertips to stay nice and clean, so they're still doing their job. And we'll go ahead and put this axle nut back on, and we'll torque him on as well. And that's the other thing, guys. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the torque wrench, but basically for 20 bucks, everything's 20 bucks by the way at Harbor Freight, all the important tools. No, I'm just kidding. But for 20 bucks you can get a torque wrench like this, and this is the click style, and you're gonna need this if you're doing a project like this. And basically we've got numbers here and we've got foot-pounds, and what we'd want to do is we're going to loosen up the thing down here and we're going to twist, and we've got numbers here, we've got 0 to 10, and we're going to line up with the number of foot-pounds, and we're going to set it, let's say we want 55 foot-pounds, we got 50 there, so we're just going to line it up with 50, and then when we want 55 we're going to move it to 55. So again, just summing up here with the torque wrench. On the cylindrical part of the torque wrench, you have 0 to 9 actually. They're little lines on the cylindrical part. Now, well, I guess they're both cylindrical parts, but on the handle cylindrical part, you have those little lines. And on the tool part, on this other part here, on the right part, what I was talking about before, the hand cylindrical part is going to be the left part. But on the right part, you have from 150 foot-pounds down to like 20 foot-pounds. And so basically you'll just line these up to the foot-pound that you want. Now, I don't know at the moment what the torque spec is for this axle nut, but I'm going to find out here, and we'll need to torque this axle nut. But we're also, while we're here, we can do this when we set the car back down, but we're going to go ahead and put our rotor back on. And I'm going to grab my caliper with the brakes, and we're going to slip this guy back on as well. And this is probably going to be fun. We're going to set them right like this. Oh, and it looks like the brake pads did move, unfortunately, a little bit there. So let's try it again. And there we go. I got them to work for me. So I'm just going to hold them right like that. And I'm gonna stick my head back here. Oh, this is tough to do with a hat on. I'm just gonna. Oh yeah, that's my neck rubbing up against the thing there. And and I got my top one started. See, we didn't even have to take the brake pads off. Just left it all in there. And I'll get this other back one here started as well. You might just wiggle this guy around a little bit so you can get the bolt threaded in the caliper bracket hole. And there we go. So, whew, I got them started there. I'm gonna take my ratchet and I'll go ahead and tighten them down. And then we'll have this whole thing here set up correctly. And then we'll go ahead and put the wheel on. I'll set the car back down and we'll go ahead and torque this guy right here. This axle nut, that is. Alright, so now I'm gonna go ahead and grab my wheel. Make sure you got all the crud and all that kind of stuff down there that might be in your way. I'm gonna go ahead and we'll just set them right up on here. Right like that. And then just go ahead and start all your lug nuts. Also guys, don't do what I did. Make sure you go ahead and take your jack and let it down on the jack stand and then move your jack, because you're not going to be able to put your wheel on with the jack in the position that you had it. So just make sure you do that and then jack it up one more time, then take the jack stand out and then go ahead and let it down on the wheel. And also, you may remember this guy from earlier. I didn't mention it and I forgot to do it when I had my wheel on there. So just make sure you put this brake line back on. It had that little 12mm bolt that went in to hold it on. So just make sure you got those two things straightened out as well before you go ahead and put your wheel on. Okay guys, so once you've got your car on the ground, we're going to go ahead and get our torque wrench out. And I try to get you a close-up shot here where we can see, I think it's the other side, where we can see I got 130, it says 150, 140, and I'm over the 130 line, and I'm at 4, so 4 goes in that middle line, if you can see what I'm talking about. It's going to be 134 foot-pounds. So now, I'll go ahead and I'll torque this axle nut down to 134 foot-pounds. Also, you'll want to make sure you leave your center cap off before you put your wheel back on there as well. So, I'm just going to go ahead and get on here. It looks like it's going to be fun, because I don't have an extension on it. And that's 134 foot-pounds. You heard it click, and we'll look at it, and it just about lines up with where I had it knocked in there before. And there's that little mark where you take a chisel and hammer and put it into the end of the axle there, so it's just about lined up, but it could go a little bit more. So my torque wrench says that's 134. I don't want to go any further. So I'll listen to him. So I'll go ahead and you'll just take a flathead screwdriver and a hammer. I think my hammer's behind me. And you'll just kind of go ahead and knock them on in there to kind of close that axle nut in like it was when you took it off. Other than that, we'll take our center cap. Well, at least for me, you may or may not have one. And we'll go ahead and just kind of stick him in there. And there we go. So that pretty much concludes today's video. Other than that, you may want to depress the brake pedal when you get back in the car, since when we did take that brake pedal assembly off, we loosened up the piston, or we compressed back that caliper piston a little bit. And so just remember to depress the brake pedal a few times to make it nice and tight there for your brakes. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching guys, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all my new videos, which publish Mondays and Fridays at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Central Time, 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and I will see you then.